My name is Christopher Jude McCarroll. I'm an assistant professor at the Institute of Philosophy of Mind and Cognition at National Yang Ming Jiao Tong University. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my research. So at a general level, my research focuses on philosophy of mind and cognitive science and aims at understanding various aspects of human cognition. So I have a specific focus on philosophy of memory, and in particular, my research centers on episodic memory, which is memory for events in one's personal past. My research tries to shed light on the nature of episodic memory, as well as the relation between episodic memory and other cognitive states and processes. States such as perception, imagination, mental imagery, decision-making processes, and personal identity. So today I'm going to talk to you about my current research focus. So in the philosophy of memory, no question is perhaps more central than the question of the relation between episodic memory and imagination. Are memory and imagination states of the same or different kinds? So this is known as the discontinuism debate. On some views, memory and imagination are states of different kinds. They are discontinuous states. On other views, memory and imagination are states of the same kind. They are continuous views. So the issue of the relation between memory and imagination is nuanced, however, and my current research focus explores a variety of questions related to discontinuism. So one way of approaching the issue is from a metaphysical perspective. From this perspective, it is the mechanisms of memory and imagination that are the focus of investigation, with a key issue being the necessity and nature of memory traces. Memory traces are thought to link a past experience to a present memory, providing a causal connection to the past event. On causal theories of memory, remembering necessarily involves a memory trace. This is what makes it a distinct kind of state to imagination. On simulationist theories of memory, remembering does not necessarily involve a causal connection to the past event. Remembering does not involve or necessarily involve a memory trace. Remembering is simply a form of imagining. So framed in this way, the debate about the relation between memory and imagination is about metaphysical discontinuism, and my research aims to show that memory traces are necessary for genuine remembering. So there's a sense in which this is to frame the debate about memory and imagination in terms of content, and whether the content of memory is supplied by a memory trace or is causally connected to the past event. But in fact, recent work in the philosophy of memory is marked by a different approach to the debate, one that may be labeled attitudinal discontinuism. So there is a common way of characterizing mental states in philosophy of mind, which consists in distinguishing between their contents and their attitudes. The content is what the mental state represents, where the attitude is the stance taken towards what is represented. So, while it is important to think of the relation between memory and imagination in terms of content and how the content is generated, it is also essential to characterize their respective attitudes. The question then becomes, do remembering and imagining involve attitudes of the same or distinct kinds? Are the attitudes of remembering and imagining continuous or discontinuous? To adopt an attitudinal perspective on the discontinuism debate is to take a broadly normative approach. Attitudes are one way of carving up distinct states in terms of their correctness or satisfaction conditions, for example. Yet there are other ways of thinking about the norms that govern memory and imagination, and whether they are the same or distinct. On this way of framing the debate, the question of the relation between memory and imagination becomes less about the mechanisms underlying the two processes, and more about the rules that govern one or the other, the ways in which they can be successful or not, and how these rules emerge, even if these rules are the same in all cultural contexts. This is the question of normative discontinuism. Are the norms or rules that govern memory and imagination the same or distinct? So I have a research project that is investigating this question. And finally, discontinuism about episodic memory and imagination may also be epistemological. It can be about whether our knowledge of the past and future is similar or fundamentally different. According to epistemological continuism, for example, There is no fundamental difference between the knowledge of past events and the knowledge of future events. We can be just as skeptical about our knowledge of the past as we can about our knowledge of the future. Yet, can we have genuine knowledge of the future? Do future events exist? Can we be as skeptical about our knowledge of the past as we can about our knowledge of the future? A further question about the relation between memory and imagination investigates these epistemological issues and answers questions about time and knowledge in memory and imagination, and whether we are forced to accept epistemological continuism or discontinuism. So, what started out as a seemingly straightforward question, what is the relation between episodic memory and imagination, turns out to be surprisingly nuanced. My research seeks to explore these varieties of the discontinuism debate and to shed light on the nature of memory and imagination, as well as the relation between them. Thanks for listening.